Wife cheated after 13 years together. Hi everyone, a little background. My wife, 28 female, and I, 28 male, have been together for 13 years. We started dating when we were roughly 16, never broke up, and got married 3 years ago. We had the kind of relationship that others were jealous of, and everyone always expected us to get married when we were younger. Over the past 1.5 to 2 years things started changing between us. Some issues came up with her family and she started to become more and more distant, both emotionally and physically, starting being super protective of her phone, and grew closer and closer with a male coworker. Long story short, I snooped, yes, I know this is bad, on her phone because I had a feeling something was going on based off a variety of factors and found incriminating texts confirming that she was having an affair with this guy. When I confronted her early September, she owned up to it, saying that it had been going on for a year. They had been having the affair in our home, sleeping together in the bedroom that would eventually be the room where our future children slept. She apologized, saying it would never happen again, and I told her that in order for us to move on I need her to have no contact with the person she cheated on me with. 2 months later and they are still talking occasionally, with her saying it is unfair of me to ask her to not talk to someone she considers a close friend. I honestly don't know what to do at this point. I am trying to see if I can move on, but I feel like I can never trust her again. I feel like her choosing to be in touch with him still shows that she is choosing their relationship over ours. I am just totally torn on what my gut is telling me. She also told me not to tell any of our friends what is going on, so I don't even have someone to talk to. Sorry, this was a bit of a rant, but it's the first time I have written it all out, and I really do not know how to proceed or how to cope with this. Edit was not expecting this large of a reaction. Outside a few of you that seem to think nasty replies are appropriate when someone has their entire life crumble around them, this was helpful. I know what I need to do, I just need to rip off the band-aid and do it. I am going to call the lawyer I spoke to a few weeks ago tomorrow and see how he says I should approach the situation. Update, hey everyone, I figured it was time to update since all of your advice was so helpful. After posting here a little over a month ago and reading all of your advice, I called my lawyer, told my parents and some close friends what was going on, and told my wife that I wanted a divorce. She begged and pleaded, promising to make things better and cut off contact with the AP. We spent all weekend together with her, promising things and saying and doing all the right things. I did not fully believe her, but I was willing to give her one more chance to try and save what I thought we had. Things were fine, we were more or less just coexisting for about a month, but she was on her phone a lot less and being more attentive to me. Well, 2 weekends ago she handed me her phone to show me something and I suspiciously swiped up on her open apps and there she was, talking to her AP on Instagram. I flipped out and she promised he just messaged her and she told him that she could not talk. This was blatantly false as I read their conversation and they were discussing what they were each doing that night. I was again duped, lied to and deceived. She told me she would finally block him but wanted to say goodbye since he was a friend. I said it was inexcusable and that she had to cut off contact and block him right then, which she said she would. 2 days later I asked if she had blocked him and she had not yet. End of the long story. I told her right on the spot that we are getting a divorce and we can either go through mediation if she agrees to every single thing that I want, or I can get my lawyer involved and I will get what I want anyway. She agreed to mediation and we are beginning that process shortly. It took me some time to get there, longer than it probably should have, but I finally have enough respect for myself to put an end to this and go find the life of happiness that I deserve. She still tries to make me feel bad about all of this, blaming me to a degree and telling me how awful of a situation I am putting her in, but I reminded her that it was her actions that caused this, not mine, and that she has to live with the consequences of her actions. I have also begun telling more friends about what happened along with the rest of my family. This is not how I ever saw my life going, but I know that this is a blessing in disguise and I will end up with someone who truly makes me happy. Final update, hey everyone. I, 29 male, know it has been a while since I last posted here, but I wanted to provide one final update on my story since you were all so helpful during this process. So, after telling my ex, 29 female, that we were getting a divorce, the gaslighting went into overdrive. Blaming me, telling me that it is my fault that I am doing this to us, that I am giving up on our marriage, that it is really sad that I am letting our relationship end this way, and that I am going to take away the home that our dog knows, etc., etc. I stood strong, didn't let her get to me, and went through with divorce mediation. Mediation was smooth, she agreed to everything that I wanted, and I received notice from the courts yesterday that I am a free man. We sold the house within 3 months of starting mediation, she moved out 1 month prior to closing on the house. The gaslighting continued while living together waiting for the house to sell, with her continuing to blame me and telling me that I am mean because I refuse to speak to her at all, and countless other things that only a truly sick individual would think to be true given the situation. Once the house sold, I moved back to my parents for a few months to collect myself and just figure out what to do with my life. I started weekly therapy and was able to reflect on the relationship, seeing how toxic and one-sided everything was. How I was the one always putting myself second and sacrificing my happiness to try to tolerate her and her unrealistic needs and expectations. My therapist suggests that it sounds like she has borderline personality disorder, which is a condition that runs in her family, and it makes total sense. I was also able to, and continue to, work on underlying issues that allowed me to get into such a toxic relationship, and at this point I feel like I will be able to identify the warning signs. I recommitted to my physical health as well, losing 15 pounds over the last 3 months and getting back into running, currently training for a 10K. Early this month I moved into my own place in New York City. I am reconnecting with friends who I lost touch with, and I have started dating for the first time in my life, albeit pretty unsuccessfully at this point. Plus, I got a promotion at work a few weeks ago that I worked my tail off for. I am mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially in a better place than I have been in years, and her showing me her true colors by having this affair was the greatest favor she could have done for me. I still have not told all of our mutual friends about the affair, as I was afraid she would get angry and tank mediation. But now that the divorce is final, I will be notifying everyone in our lives as to who she is and what she did. I guess all this was all just a long-winded way of saying that things will get better. There is nothing wrong with any of us because we were cheated on, and to try to use this as a launching point for you making yourself better and working to make yourself the best possible person. This is going to be my last significant post here most likely, as while I don't think my journey of healing has come to an end, it's just come to a new chapter, and dwelling on what this woman did to me is not worth it. Thank you again for all the support, both in terms of kind words as well as the harsh truths that I had to read. Comments from Op. Just know that I do not think that everyone with BPD is a bad person. I understand that it often is a result of a traumatic childhood, and she most definitely had her own circumstances to overcome with a bad home life. She was never physically violent in any way, and my therapist even said that he cannot diagnose her. It was more in that the stories I was telling him, he said her behavior reads a lot like someone that is dealing with BPD, but of course he can't actually diagnose her. I know there are people who seek treatment and try to improve, and they can be trusted. She was not willing to put in any work to see a therapist despite me having told her numerous times that she should. She is a mental health professional and thought she knew more than everyone and was smarter than everyone. I appreciate the kind words, and did not mean to offend or put a bad stigma on BPD in any way, and if my phrasing did, I will work to improve it. Second comment. Just to be totally clear, I am not going to be putting this on social media and telling every single person in the world. I am going to tell my close friends my story. What is going on in my life? If she is collateral damage along the way, there is nothing I can do about it. Everything I am sharing is 100,000% fact, no feelings, no additions. XYZ is what happened. Secondly, I should have been clearer. My therapist said that while he cannot actually diagnose her, a lot of the behaviors I mentioned sound like someone who could be suffering from BPD. I know her mother was diagnosed with it because we were still happily married when the diagnosis came down. Third, I have suggested and practically begged her for years to go to therapy, both individual and couples, and she was unwilling. She is a mental health professional herself and thinks she knows better than everyone. There is nothing that I can do to force her to go, especially now. While yes, I understand that if she is really mentally ill, then a lot of her actions aren't her fault or whatever, but that doesn't mean there aren't consequences. My wife cheated on me 4 years ago, and I still don't trust her. 4 years ago, I found out my wife was pregnant with our first child. She didn't seem as thrilled as most because she wasn't sure if she wanted kids, but we had been trying for 6 months. 3 weeks later, I found out she had been cheating on me. She swore it was mine because she hadn't done anything with the other guy since her last period, but the entire pregnancy was rough for our relationship. I worried about my unborn from the arguments we were having. I worried about her from her constant crying. I put my mental health on the back burner. I think I had PTSD, to be quite frank. I was also nervous as to what if he wasn't mine. Now, I adore this woman. I have since high school. We started dating when she was 15 and I was 17. We had been married for 7 years at this point, and were both in our late 20s. I would do anything for her. Still would. We were on vacation to where she had told me how scared she was about the pregnancy while crying, and we talked quite a bit. Never registered to me something else was going on. At some point during the vacation, she installed her Facebook Messenger on my phone due to spotty internet. I don't have Facebook, never have. When we got back from vacation, I started getting Facebook pop-ups. Didn't know what they were, so I read them. It was a guy from her work claiming he missed her, talking dirty talk, he wanted to get together that night, etc., etc. She turned him down. She broke it off. She didn't know I was watching the whole thing. I was at work, my heart being shattered, and trying to pretend like nothing was going on to my coworkers. I confronted her about it when she got home. She denied for about a second until she knew I knew. She told me he was the only one. I still don't know if that's true. I just don't fully trust anything she said at that moment. I told her if I found out she was lying, I would leave her on the spot, despite the fact she was carrying my kid. She said they only got together once. I called bullshit. She said 3 times. I still don't know if I trust that. She said it hadn't been for about 3 months. I think I trust that. Now, as I said, I adore this woman. I never left. We had many nights of tearful conversations. I had the worst chest pains of my life, and as I said, I think I still have PTSD. Every time I hear that F-king Facebook Messenger alarm, even on a stranger's phone, to this day, I get anxiety. She said she'd never do it again. I told her if I ever found out she had lied to me or was cheating again, I'm gone, no questions asked. Quite honestly, and this is not me trying to protect her, but I think she was on the verge of suicide. She has suffered from depression for about 12 years. She was in a funk, I knew, but didn't have the balls to do anything to get her out of her funk. I still feel awful about that. I think she wanted to see if she could feel something with somebody before she did the deed. In fact, I came across a journal she had written at the time saying she wasn't even attracted to her own husband. In a way meaning that she doesn't feel anything and is numb from her depression. I've never confronted her on the suicide thing, but did on the attraction thing, and have since made appointments for her to get help. Our sex life was fine. Not as often as I would have liked. I thought due to her depression. Maybe I just wasn't doing enough to support her and help her feel in the mood? She still doesn't initiate, which is something I wish would change. I've brought that up before. Also, when I bring up anything about the affair, she deflects and gets upset. She did this mostly from the start, but I would make her talk. Also, we've never told anyone. That's something that, at times, I feel like should change. Well, except I told her best friend at the time. I didn't know what else to do. They don't see each other as much, unfortunately. The guy? He was quite a few pay grades above her. Worked with her. She still works there. I hate that. He moved away. His wife doesn't know. I told him I'd leave it up to him and that I hoped if he didn't tell her, that it would eat at him every time and looked at his wife and son. To be honest, I could wreck his life if I wanted to. I dream of that, but I would never. Unless I found out something was going on still, though it's not. I am a good man. I try to be the best man I can, and I think it shows. But I dream of him dying an early, painful death, and I dream of traveling to his grave and pissing on it, to be honest. 4 years later, this is the first time I've really admitted to any of this. I know this is super long and I'm sorry. Trying to take full advantage of the subforum, though. I don't want to hear about her being a bad person, either. I love her like crazy still. She's not a bad person, but was just in a bad way. We have 2 kids now. They're adorable. I love my family. I just want to put this out there because I've never talked to anyone about it, and thought maybe it would help me heal some of the trust issues and resentment that I still have after 4 years. No TLDR here because it's not worth it. I'm sure there's so much more to say that I forgot, but I don't want to start crying as I'm sitting here by myself. Lol, to be truthful, I don't think about this as much anymore. In the early days, I thought about it every 5 minutes. Then every hour. Then every day. Now, maybe once a month, if that. I just thought this might help. It may not, judging on the early responses. I have no inclination to leave her. I love her dearly. I am very happy overall, I just feel like she's put a mark on our relationship. We live a happy life with our 2 kids. We both have good jobs. I think we've grown from this for sure. Story 2. Cheating once is enough. Don't ever let it get past that. Met my ex when I, female, was 15 years old at my male best friend's 16th birthday party. The distinction on male is important for later in the story. My ex and my male best friend had been buddies since elementary school and their families were close. To say that was the day my love life went in a downward spiral would be an understatement. The first instance of perceived cheating event where I knew my ex couldn't be trusted was my senior year of HS. My ex and I had been dating on and off for a while at this point. One day during the summer I got invited to his house for a summer barbecue his parents were having. Almost everyone was outside besides my ex and a few of my friends who I knew were there because of their Snapchat stories. I went into the house to look for my friends and what I saw threw me. My former female best friend and my ex were laid up in bed together cuddling, and he was caressing her face while another girl who was a friend of my former best friend was in the room egging them on. I couldn't believe what it was seeing. What made it worse was my brother was with me. My brother and my female ex-best friend were romantically involved with each other. It was a gut punch to both of us. We went the usual high school traumatic love story, and eventually when I went off to college we lost contact. 2017, after graduating from college, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. June of that year, my guy best friend called me crying, informing me that the mother of his child had been cheating on him while at basic training in the army, and he found videos of her on their computer since the iCloud was connected on all devices. At the time, his daughter, my goddaughter, was staying with him, and he was doing his best to be a good dad while dealing with his emotions. I decided this was my sign to go back home and help my best friend while figuring my life out. When I got to the house, my ex was there. He was painting my goddaughter's room. At first I didn't want to be there, but I stayed and we talked. About 3 months later we decided to start over. He became the doting partner I always wanted. We went on dates, talked for hours, went to the pier at night to watch the waves crashing against the shoreline. It was fun. And then his ex-GF appeared. I'm not the jealous type, but I do know BS when I see it. They were continuously in contact and it was starting to become inappropriate. Her calling and texting at all hours of the night. Calling him drunk, asking him to meet her. It was getting out of hand and I had to put my foot down. Eventually the calls and texts stopped, or so I thought. We moved to PA in 2018 and I thought this was the fresh start we needed. About 4 months later I found out his ex had moved to PA as well, 15 minutes away from our house. I thought that can't be a coincidence. One night he agreed to go meet her to talk because he saw how uncomfortable I was with the situation. But I told him he wasn't going alone. He agreed, but when I went to the bathroom to get ready, he left without me. It was at that point I knew neither of them could be trusted. At the time, I had figured out his Apple ID and password and tracked his location. He was at the club where his ex worked. I decided enough was enough. After Christmas there was noticeable shift between us and he kept trying to figure out why I wasn't as emotionally or sexually invested in him. In my defense, I wasn't good at communication at this time, so the only reaction I knew was silence. He became more and more frustrated that I wouldn't sleep with him. At one point or another he asked why, and I told him because I think you're sleeping with other people and I won't put myself in the position to catch anything. At this point you're thinking, why didn't you just leave? I couldn't. We had just renewed the lease and I was stuck for a few more months. Things eventually calmed down between us and we started to talk and communicate more. But something told me to be wary. We were supposed to go to NYC one weekend to support his dad's show in the Bronx, as he was a salsa and bachata singer. A really good one at that. I went to go get my hair and nails done, which I usually did every 2 weeks, but this time he was impatient. When I got home he was dressed and walking out the door. I asked him, "Where are you going?" "I'm about to shower so we can leave." "My bags are packed," he said to me. "You have your own car, you can drive to NYC. We don't always have to go places together." That made absolutely no sense to me. Why would we take 2 cars if we're going to the same place? He didn't give me a chance to respond. He closed the door and left. It takes approximately 2 hours with a little traffic to get to his parents' place in NYC. However, 4 hours had gone by and his parents hasn't seen him. They called me to see where we were and I told them he left without me and didn't tell me why. They were just as confused as I was. About 6 hours later, he finally arrived at his parents' place looking tired when he FaceTimed me. I already knew what was up. I just wanted to see if he would lie about it. He didn't say a word. He chalked it up to traffic and he was hungry, so he stopped for food. His mom and I gave each other a look over the phone that solidified that we both knew he was lying. When he came back I asked him what her name was. He called me crazy. And I told him I didn't feel like arguing, I just needed the truth. But the truth I got wasn't what I was expecting. It was like the floodgates opened and he couldn't stop. He came clean to me about cheating on me with my female best friend, a few of the girls at his job, his ex-girlfriend and a few girls he met on Instagram. My heart fell to my ass and I froze. The only thing I remember was throwing pots, pans and books at him to the point he barricaded himself in our bedroom and didn't come out until my sister came and calmed me down. I went and got tested immediately to make sure he didn't give me anything I didn't know about. Let's just say, we haven't spoken since 2019.